When I opened the door to my own home, I found my daughter-in-law sleeping in my bed as if she owned the place. I didn't know that image would break my heart forever. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd share. And if you, for just a second, feel like any of this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It'll help me to keep unburdening myself. It was 10:15 at night when my cab pulled up in front of the red brick building in Logan Square, Chicago. My legs trembled as I got out, not from the fatigue of the flight from Rome, but from that strange feeling that something had changed while I was away. The city air greeted me with its familiar mix of traffic exhaust and street vendor hot dogs. But this time, it didn't comfort me like it usually did. I had been in Italy for 15 days. 15 days I gifted myself at 67, after a lifetime spent working as a clerk at the Cook County office, raising my son Rob, alone since he was 3. After his father decided we were too complicated for his simple life. 15 days of walking on cobblestone streets, admiring the Trevi Fountain, eating gelato without guilt, feeling for the first time in decades that I existed for something more than serving others. My rolling suitcase made a clattering sound against the lobby floor as I climbed the stairs to my second-floor condo. The building smelled of fried onions and laundry detergent, as always. But when I reached the landing, Mrs. Gable, my neighbor across the hall, opened her door with that look older women reserve for bad news. "Oh, Eleanor, you're back?" she whispered, peeking her head out. "Your daughter-in-law showed up about 2 weeks ago. She even changed the lock. And the doorbell sounds different." My blood ran cold. Alexis? In my home? Without my permission, without even telling me. My hands grew clammy as I fumbled in my purse for my keys. That brown leather purse I'd bought in a little market in Rome, which now felt like an object from another world, from another life where I had the right to make decisions about my own existence. I rang the doorbell of my own home. The sound was high-pitched, different from the one I knew by heart after 15 years of living there. The door buzzed open from the inside with an electric hum I didn't recognize either. Someone had changed the system. I pushed the door open and walked into what should have been my sanctuary after 2 weeks of missing it. And there she was. Alexis, my 32-year-old daughter-in-law, sitting on my blue velvet sofa, the one I'd bought on a payment plan 5 years ago, eating popcorn from a family-sized bag, watching Netflix on my television. She was wearing my floral robe, the one my sister gave me before she died. On her feet were my brown sheepskin slippers. Her bleached blonde hair was thrown up in a messy bun, and her nails were painted a garish pink that clashed violently with the gentleness of everything she had touched. "What are you doing here?" I managed to articulate, though my voice came out as a broken whisper. Alexis didn't even pause her show. She kept munching on her popcorn as she looked at me with that annoyed expression she reserved for interruptions. "Weren't you coming back on Friday?" she finally said, as if my presence in my own home was an inconvenience. "Well, my apartment flooded from a burst pipe, and since Rob's in Houston for work, I just came here for a bit." "No biggie." She looked me up and down, sizing up my wrinkled travel clothes, my swollen face from exhaustion, my suitcase that seemed out of place in what was once my living room. "Who gave you permission to come into my house?" I asked. And this time my voice was firmer. She laughed, a short, dismissive little laugh. "Oh, please. It's not like you use this place for anything important. Besides, wasn't this some little retirement trip? Go on, get some rest." The bedroom's all set up, though I had to move a few little things that were in the way. Little things that were in the way. My memories, my belongings, my life. I walked toward my bedroom on shaky legs. I opened the door, and the air left my lungs. My bed was a mess, with sheets I didn't recognize. Satin, a gaudy gold color I would never have chosen. The smell was different too, a sickly sweet perfume that made me nauseous. The photograph of my mother, the one that had been on my nightstand since I moved out on my own at 21, was gone. In its place, a vanilla-scented candle filled the air with a cloying aroma. I opened my closet. My dresses were crammed into a corner, wrinkled, some even thrown on the floor. The main space was occupied by her clothes, glittery tops, tight jeans, dresses that screamed youth and defiance. My comfortable shoes had been relegated to the floor, while her high heels took over the shoe rack I had so carefully installed myself. But the worst was on the dresser, the drawer of my keepsakes, where I kept the letters my mother wrote me during her last illness, the first baby pictures of Rob, my marriage license, and the divorce decree that marked the beginning and end of my only romantic illusion, was open. The papers were jumbled. Some letters even had coffee stains on them, as if someone had been reading them over breakfast. I sat on the edge of my bed, which no longer felt like my bed, and burst into tears. But I didn't cry because of Alexis's audacity, or the invasion, or the lack of respect. I cried because in that moment, I understood with devastating clarity that I no longer had a place in my own life. I had been erased from my own home, and no one had considered that it might hurt me. Outside, I could hear her boisterous laughter mixing with the dialogue from the TV. She laughed as if nothing had happened, as if displacing a 67-year-old woman from her own space was the most natural thing in the world. That night, I slept curled up in a corner of my bed, using a blanket I found in the hall closet because mine had disappeared. The vanilla smell made me dizzy, but I didn't dare blow out the candle. I didn't feel I had the right to touch anything in what had once been my sanctuary. The next morning, I woke up with a stiff neck and a sense of unreality that would stay with me for weeks. It was like living in a movie where they'd replaced the main character without telling me. I got up early, as I had for 40 years of work, but this time I had nowhere to go. It was Saturday, and my routine of cleaning the house, doing my shopping at the local market, and prepping food for the week had become impossible in my own home. I left the bedroom, trying not to make a sound. Alexis was still asleep, her heavy breathing filling the space that was once my refuge. In the kitchen, I looked for my favorite mug, the white ceramic one with little blue flowers that Rob gave me for Mother's Day 10 years ago, but I couldn't find it. In its place were huge mugs with phrases on them. "Boss babe," said one. "Queen energy," proclaimed another. I made coffee in a mug that wasn't mine, with coffee that wasn't mine either. Alexis had filled my pantry with expensive organic products: almond milk, Ethiopian single-origin coffee beans, whole wheat bread that tasted like cardboard. My trusty Folgers coffee was gone, along with my Nilla wafers and my Smucker's strawberry jam. As I waited for the coffee to cool, I stared at my kitchen walls. The refrigerator magnets I'd been collecting for 20 years were gone, each one a memory of a place Rob and I had visited when he was a boy: Navy Pier, Starved Rock, the Wisconsin Dells. She had replaced them with sticky notes: Gym Monday, Facial Tuesday, Brunch Wednesday, a schedule of privileges I had never had. That's when the memories started flooding in like a cruel avalanche. I remembered when Rob was 8 and came down with pneumonia. I was working for the city then, earning peanuts, but I took out a loan from the credit union that took me 2 years to pay off to take him to Northwestern Memorial. I stayed awake for 3 nights straight in that uncomfortable chair next to his bed, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, praying to every saint I knew not to take him from me. I remembered waking up at 5 in the morning to pack him a nutritious lunch for school, while other mothers just gave their kids money for pizza. I couldn't afford those luxuries. Every dollar counted. Every cent had a purpose: school shoes, supplies, the voluntary contributions that were never really voluntary. I remembered when Rob turned 15 and wanted a mountain bike like his friend Patrick's. It cost 3 months of my salary. I worked double shifts for 4 months, sold my only gold locket, a family heirloom from my grandmother, and showed up on his birthday with that red bike that made him scream with excitement. That scream was worth every extra hour, every skipped meal, every backache from sitting at a desk for too long. I remembered when he graduated from high school and wanted to study business at a private university. "Mom, it's my future," he told me with those eyes he inherited from his father, capable of convincing me of anything. I took out a second mortgage on the condo I had spent 15 years paying off. 15 years of scrimping and saving, of buying clothes at the Maxwell Street Market, of walking instead of taking the L to save the fare. For 5 years I paid for that university. 5 years of eating beans and rice almost every day, of wearing shoes until they literally had holes in the soles, of cutting my own hair in front of the bathroom mirror because I couldn't afford a salon. But he graduated, with honors. And I cried with pride at that ceremony, where all the other mothers wore beautiful dresses, and I had on the same navy blue dress I'd worn to the last 3 important events in my life. I remembered when he met Alexis at his job. She was an event coordinator at a marketing firm, earned more than him, drove a new car, lived in a Wicker Park apartment that cost what I earned in 4 months. "She's different, Mom," Rob told me. "She's independent, modern. She doesn't need a man to support her." At first, I thought that was a good thing. A woman who didn't depend on my son financially. But I soon discovered that independent meant I still had to be the one to give when they were short. The first time they asked me for money was for the down payment on a bigger apartment. "We just need more space, Eleanor," Alexis explained with that smile that never reached her eyes. "We're thinking of starting a family soon." I took $5,000 out of my retirement savings. Money I had saved penny by penny for 10 years, dreaming of maybe taking a vacation someday, or fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom that got worse every year. They never started that family. The apartment became the place where Alexis hosted parties for her influencer friends, women who took pictures of everything they ate and talked about trips to Tulum as if they were going to the corner store. The second time was for Alexis's car. "Hers broke down and she needs it for work," Rob explained. Another $3,000 from my savings. I later found out it hadn't broken down. She'd sold it to buy designer clothes for her influencer job, which was apparently now more important than her real job. The third, fourth, and fifth times blurred into a haze of emergencies that always involved my money but never my opinion. The surgery for Alexis's maternal grandmother, whom I'd never met. The digital marketing course that was going to change her life. The new furniture for the apartment because the old stuff didn't fit their aesthetic anymore. And I always said yes. I always found a way. I sold my old TV and just watched the one in the living room. I switched to a cheaper cell phone plan. I stopped buying my arthritis medication because it wasn't that necessary. I mended clothes instead of buying new ones. I became an expert at making miracles with $20 at the grocery store, at finding sales, at stretching every resource to limits I didn't know existed. But never, in all those years, did I receive a thank you that sounded genuine. Never a visit just because. Never a call asking how I was that wasn't followed by a request. My 65th birthday passed unnoticed. My 66th, too. For my 67th, I decided to give myself Rome, with my own savings. With the money I had managed to put away working part-time at a pharmacy after I retired, because my pension wasn't enough to live on after so many loans they never paid back. Alexis woke up at 11 in the morning, as she did every day, I would later learn. She walked out of my bedroom in her underwear, without the slightest bit of shame, heading to the bathroom as if she'd lived there her whole life. I heard her use my expensive shampoo, the one I bought at the duty-free shop in the Rome airport as a small personal luxury. When she came out, wrapped in my favorite bath towel, she found me sitting at the kitchen table with my cold cup of coffee in my hands. "Morning," she said, not really looking at me. "Is there anything to eat?" As if I were the live-in maid in my own house. "I haven't been to the store," I replied. "Oh, well, chop. I can't go. I have a photo shoot at 3. Rob sends me money for expenses, but you know how to handle that stuff better." Just like that, she assumed I was responsible for keeping a house running that no longer felt like mine, to support a lifestyle that had never been mine, with my own money and my own effort. And the most terrible part was that a piece of me, that part trained by decades of sacrifice and service, was actually considering doing it. I went to the Jewel Osco that morning like a zombie. I walked the aisles pushing a cart, choosing products she had specifically requested: Greek yogurt, artisanal granola, smoked salmon, imported cheeses, things that cost 3 times as much as my usual groceries. At the checkout, when I saw the total on the screen, $150, I felt my head spin. It was more than I spent on food for a whole month. I paid with my debit card, watching my balance drop drastically. Rob sent her money for expenses, Alexis had said, but apparently that money was invisible, ethereal, a promise that floated in the air but never materialized in my wallet. When I got back, she was on the phone in the living room, laughing loudly while painting her nails a neon pink that was staining my coffee table. "No way, girl. The old lady went to Rome, I heard her say. Can you believe it? 67 and she still thinks she can go backpacking around the world. It's so cringy when people don't act their age, right? She laughed again. That cruel laugh that drilled into my chest. Yeah, so I'm staying here. The place is super cute. And well, someone has to look after it, right? Besides, Rob says his mom is getting too old to live alone, that it's dangerous. Dangerous? Living alone was dangerous, but having a stranger invade my home without permission was safe? I put the groceries away in silence, arranging expensive products in cupboards that I had filled with so much effort over the decades. Every time I opened a cabinet, I found my things shoved aside, pushed to the back, as if they were an inconvenience in my own kitchen. The following days were a silent torture of small humiliations that accumulated like drops of poison in my soul. That soap you use smells like a hospital. I swapped it for one that isn't so harsh on the skin. Do you really need to heat up milk twice a day? You're wasting gas. I can hear you when you walk with that cane. Can't you just wear slippers? Here, let me. I'll handle the TV remote. You never understand these new ones. Each comment was like a slap wrapped in a pretty bow. It feigned concern but dripped with contempt. I became an intruder in my own home, a clumsy old woman whose existence was an annoyance, who didn't understand technology, who didn't know how to buy the right products, who made too much noise walking through her own house. One afternoon, while I was trying to watch my 4 o'clock soap opera, my only moment of escape in those terrible days, Alexis arrived with 3 friends, women her age, all with that air of superiority that comes from marketing jobs and Instagram accounts with thousands of followers. Girls, this is the place I was telling you about, she announced as if she were a tour guide. Isn't it cute? It's super vintage, so authentic. They set up shop in my living room with glasses of wine, a portable speaker they connected to my TV, and an impromptu photo shoot where they posed with my plants, my bookshelf, my decorations. Everything became part of their aesthetic, props for their digital lives. And the old lady? One of them asked, a brunette with blonde extensions who looked at me as if I were a piece of furniture. Oh, she's around. You know how they are. A little lost, poor things. That's why Rob asked me to stay and take care of her. Take care of me? Was that the narrative? I was the beneficiary of her invasive presence. I locked myself in the small spare room, the only space she apparently hadn't conquered, and cried until my chest ached. I cried for the photo of my mother that had disappeared, for my favorite mugs I couldn't find, for my bed that no longer smelled like me, for my dignity, which was crumbling like a sandcastle in the rain. But the most devastating blow came the following Sunday. My grandchildren came to visit me every 2 weeks, a tradition we'd kept since they were born. Sam, 12, and Sophie, 9, were the light of my life. On Sundays, I would cook for them, lasagna from scratch, garlic bread, a big salad. We'd play board games, watch Disney movies, and they'd tell me about their school adventures while I braided Sophie's hair and helped Sam with his math homework. That morning, I got up early, as I always did on Sundays. I bought the ingredients for the lasagna with the last of the cash in my wallet. I spent 3 hours in the kitchen simmering the sauce, layering the pasta and cheese, mixing in the love and patience that only grandmothers know. The house smelled like a celebration, like tradition, like home. At 2 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I ran to open it, still wearing my apron, with a smile so wide it hurt my face from not having used it genuinely in so long. But on the other side of the door weren't my grandchildren. It was Rob, alone with an uncomfortable look on his face. Hey, Mom. Just came by to pick up some papers Alexis forgot. And the kids? I asked, peering past him toward the hallway. They're not coming today. Why not? Are they sick? Rob avoided my gaze, just like he used to as a boy when he'd done something wrong. No, Mom. It's just, Alexis told them you don't have Wi-Fi here, or video games, or anything fun, that it would be better if they came another day when we had time to prepare more age-appropriate activities. The words hit me like closed fists. Alexis had sabotaged my Sunday with my grandchildren. She had convinced 2 children that their grandmother was boring, old-fashioned, that her house was not a place where they could have fun. Rob, I've been cooking for them for 3 hours. It's Sunday. They always come on Sundays. I know, Mom, but But what? Look, Alexis has a point about some things. The kids are at an age where they need different kinds of stimulation, technology, more current activities. Current. As if a grandmother's love was something obsolete, something that could be replaced with a game console. And the lasagna? What about the afternoon we had planned? Another day, Mom, I promise. But I knew that another day would never come. Alexis had made sure of that. Rob came in quickly, grabbed a folder from the desk in the living room. Apparently, Alexis was using my workspace for her things too, and left without even tasting the food I had prepared with so much love. I was left alone in my kitchen, looking at the pans full of food that no one was going to eat, smelling the aromas that now seemed to mock me. I took a plate, served myself a small portion of lasagna, and sat down to eat alone at the table where we had shared so many happy Sundays. Every bite tasted like tears. That night, when Alexis returned from who knows where, she had left after her friends did, she found me packing the lasagna into Tupperware containers. "Oh, that smells amazing. Did you save me some?" I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in days, I saw her youth, her audacity, her absolute lack of awareness of the damage she was causing. I saw someone who took what she wanted without thinking of the consequences, who manipulated situations to her benefit without considering the feelings of others. And for the first time, a small voice in my head whispered something that scared me. Don't give her anything. Not food, not shelter, not a kind word. She doesn't deserve it. But I didn't listen. Not yet. Help yourself, I said, and went to my room. That night, lying in my bed that smelled of someone else's perfume, I made a decision that would change everything. The next day, I would call Rob. I would demand an explanation. I would ask him when Alexis was leaving my house. I didn't know that call would break my heart in ways I didn't think possible. The next day, I dialed Rob's number with trembling hands. It was 9 in the morning. I knew he'd be at the construction site in Houston. The phone rang 5 times before he answered with that distracted voice he reserved for calls that interrupted his work. "What's up, Mom? I'm in a meeting. Rob, I need to talk to you. It's about Alexis." I heard a deep sigh on the other end of the line, as if my call was a predictable nuisance. "What now? Are you starting with your drama again?" My drama? The word cut through me like a knife. 44 years of raising him, of sacrificing everything for him, and now my legitimate feelings were drama. It's not drama, Rob. Your wife is living in my house without my permission. She changed the locks, threw out my things, and yesterday she told the kids not to come because there's nothing fun to do here. Mom, please don't exaggerate. Alexis explained everything. Her apartment flooded and she needed a temporary place. Your house is empty. What's the big deal if she stays there for a few days? A few days? It's been 2 weeks, Rob, and no one asked my permission. Oh, Mom, always so dramatic. You're getting older. You should be more empathetic to family emergencies. There it was again. You're getting older. As if age were a disease that invalidated me, that stripped me of the right to have opinions about my own life. And my things? Why did she throw out your grandmother's picture? Why did she change my bed sheets? Mom, come on. Those are insignificant details. Alexis is just trying to make the house feel more livable, more modern. Insignificant details? My mother's photo, my memories, my personal space. They were insignificant details? Rob, I want her to leave. This is my house. The silence that followed was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice had that condescending tone he used when he thought I didn't understand important things. Look, Mom, I already talked to Alexis about this. She's worried about you. She says that since you got back from Rome, you've been off, more forgetful. She saw you talking to yourself in the kitchen. Talking to myself? When had I... Oh, right. The day before, I had mumbled a prayer while making the lasagna, like I always did when I cooked something special. It was a habit I'd inherited from my mother, a way of putting love into the food, but Alexis had interpreted it as a sign of senility. I wasn't talking to myself, Rob. I was praying while I cooked, just like I have my whole life. Whatever, Mom. The point is, Alexis thinks it's no longer safe for you to live alone, that you could hurt yourself, or worse, someone could take advantage of you. The words hit me like slaps. My own son was using my age as a weapon against me, turning my 67 years of life into evidence of incompetence. So the solution is for her to live in my house without my consent? It's not forever, Mom. Just until we find a more suitable alternative for your situation. A more suitable alternative. The words hung in the air like a veiled threat. What kind of alternative? A nursing home? A retirement community? A place where they could leave me while they took over my condo? Rob, I am perfectly fine. I just got back from an international trip I planned by myself. I manage my finances, my home, my life. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Mom, that trip is exactly what worries us. Don't you think it's strange for a woman your age to be traveling alone through Europe? What will the neighbors think? The family? There it was. The real reason for his annoyance. It wasn't concern for my safety. It was shame. Shame of having a mother who, at 67, still wanted to live, to explore, to enjoy. A mother who didn't conform to staying home waiting to die while knitting sweaters for grandchildren who no longer visited. Are you embarrassed that your mother traveled to Rome, Rob? It's not embarrassment, Mom. It's concern. It's responsibility. As your son, I have to look out for your well-being. And my well-being includes your wife displacing me from my own home? Look, Mom, I have to go. This conversation isn't going anywhere. Alexis is staying there until the repairs on her apartment are done. Period. And frankly, I think having company is good for you. I've always thought living alone isn't good for people your age. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my kitchen, holding the phone in silence, as my son's words bounced around in my head like stray bullets. People your age. Situation. More suitable alternative. When had I stopped being his mother and become his problem? That afternoon, while Alexis was at one of her photo shoots, I decided to look for answers. I opened her laptop, which she had left plugged in on my dining room table. I know I shouldn't have, but I needed to understand what was really going on. Her iMessage was open on the screen, and there I found the conversation that would shatter forever any illusion I had left about my family. The chat was with Rob. It began 2 weeks before my return from Rome. Alexis, I'm so over my apartment. It's tiny and the neighbors are super toxic. Do you think your mom would let me stay at her place for a few days? Rob, at my mom's? I don't know, babe. You know how she is about her stuff, Alexis. But she's on that trip, right? The place is empty. Besides, it's not like she uses it for anything important. Rob, I just don't know how she'll take it. Alexis, what if we don't tell her? You said she's not back until Friday. By then I'll be all settled in, and it'll be harder for her to kick me out. Rob, I don't know, Alex. Alexis, babe, think about it. Your mom's getting older. Don't you think it would be good for someone to be there to look after her? We could say I'm staying for her sake. Rob, that actually makes sense. I have noticed she's been more scattered lately. Alexis, exactly. And between us, that condo is in a great location. If she can't manage it on her own anymore, wouldn't it be better if we made use of it? Rob, are you talking about her moving out? Alexis, I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying it. There are some really nice senior living places now, places where she'd be better cared for. Rob, my mom is so stubborn. She'll never agree to move. Alexis, that's why we have to be smart. If I stay there taking care of her, we can start documenting things that prove she can't live alone anymore. You know, if she forgets things, says weird stuff, can't keep the house up. Rob, I don't know. That sounds kind of manipulative. Alexis, manipulative? It's for her own good. Besides, think about it, babe. We're paying rent on a tiny apartment while she has a 2-bedroom place she barely uses. Doesn't that seem unfair? Rob, when you put it like that. Alexis, exactly. I'm going to go ahead and change the lock for security. We don't know who else has keys, and I'll start arranging things to make it look more lived in by someone responsible. Rob, okay, but when she gets back, we tell her it was because of the flood. Alexis, obviously, and we'll document everything she does wrong for when it's time to have the conversation. Rob, what if she gets really upset? Alexis, babe, she's your mom. In the end, she'll understand it's for the best. And if she doesn't, well, it'll already be done. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? I kept reading as my heart broke into a million pieces. Messages where they planned how to prove my incompetence, where Alexis reported my strange behaviors, like praying while cooking or sighing when I saw my moved photos, where they calculated how much they could get if they sold my condo and put me in a home for my own good. There were pictures Alexis had taken of my home to document the decay. My living room, which she said smelled weird. My kitchen, which was disorganized, because she had moved everything. My bedroom, which had unsanitary conditions, because I had stored my clean sheets in plastic bags to protect them. Each image was accompanied by cruel comments. Look at how she stores things. She clearly can't keep things tidy anymore. This place smells like an old person's house. Rob, you have to see these pics. Your mom definitely needs professional help. And Rob would reply, yeah, that looks bad. You're right. We need to do something soon. My own son, my only son, the boy I nursed, whom I cared for when he was sick, whom I raised with so much love and sacrifice, had been planning my eviction from my own life. I closed the laptop with trembling hands. I walked to the bathroom and threw up until there was nothing left in my stomach but bile and betrayal. I stayed in the bathroom for I don't know how long, sitting on the cold floor, leaning against the wall, feeling my world rebuild itself piece by piece with terrible clarity. It wasn't madness. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't the oversensitivity of an older woman. It was a real, calculated, cold conspiracy. For the first time in weeks, my mind was completely clear. I got up, washed my face, and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me was 67 years old, with wrinkles around her eyes that spoke of decades of smiles and worries. With silver hair I'd chosen not to dye because I liked the wisdom it represented. But her eyes had something new, a hardness that hadn't been there before. 67 years old, I said aloud. 67 years of life, work, sacrifice, love, and they think that makes me helpless. I walked to my bedroom and took out the folder where I kept my important documents from my suitcase, the one I always traveled with. There they were. My birth certificate, my updated driver's license, my bank statements, the deed to my property, my will, my insurance policies. All in order, all legal, all mine. I also took out my savings passbook, the one Rob and Alexis didn't know about. The account I had opened at a different bank when I started working part-time at the pharmacy after I retired. $4,300. Money I had saved penny by penny, without anyone knowing, for emergencies. Well, this was the biggest emergency of my life. That afternoon, when Alexis left for a work meeting, which, according to her texts, was lunch with influencer friends at a restaurant in Wicker Park, I acted. First, I changed all my passwords. Online banking, email, my Netflix account that she had been using. Next, I called my bank and reported my debit card as lost. I needed a new one, and the old one canceled immediately. Were there any unauthorized charges, Mrs. Miller? The phone representative asked. Let's just say I need tighter control over my finances, I replied. It was the first time I hadn't lied to protect my family. Then I called a locksmith, the same guy who had installed the original locks 5 years ago. Mike, this is Eleanor Miller from Logan Square. I need you to come and change my locks again. Again, Mrs. M? Didn't we just change those? I wasn't the one who put those in. Someone changed my locks without my authorization. Geez, ma'am, did you get robbed? Something like that, I said. Can you come today? An hour later, Mike was at my door with his toolbox, shaking his head in disapproval as he looked at the new locks. These are cheap, ma'am. The kind you get at Walmart. Anyone can pop these with a credit card. Who installed this? Someone who thought I wouldn't notice, I replied. While Mike worked, I systematically went through my house, reclaiming my things. I searched for my mother's photo until I found it in a box under the bed, along with other objects that were in the way. I placed it back on my nightstand where it belonged. I took Alexis's clothes out of my closet and packed them into suitcases I found in the guest room closet. I didn't throw them out. I didn't damage them. I simply packed them with the same care she had used to pack my life into boxes. I retrieved my sheets from where she had stored them and remade my bed. The vanilla smell of her candles nauseated me, so I put them all in a plastic bag and left them next to the suitcases. In the kitchen, I took out all her organic products and organized them into boxes. I put my Folgers coffee back in its place, my Nilla wafers, my strawberry jam. I searched for my favorite mug until I found it at the back of the cupboard, shoved behind her motivational mugs. I washed it with special care and made myself a coffee. The first coffee I had enjoyed in my own home in 2 weeks. Mike finished his work at 5 in the afternoon. "All set, ma'am. These are solid. And here are your keys. All the copies you had of the old ones are useless now." I paid him and gave him a generous tip. It was the first money I'd spent on my own well-being in a long time. At 6:30, Alexis arrived. I heard her fumbling with the lock for several minutes before ringing the doorbell. I opened the door to find her looking confused, carrying shopping bags from some expensive clothing store. "Eleanor, what happened to the lock? My key isn't working." "I changed it," I said with a calmness that surprised even me. "Why?" "Because it's my house, and I can change the locks whenever I damn well please." Alexis blinked several times, as if processing information that didn't fit her reality. "Is everything okay? You sound weird." "I'm perfect. Your things are packed in the guest room. You can pick them up whenever you like." "My things? What are you talking about?" I stepped aside to let her pass. I walked to the guest room and pointed to the suitcases and boxes I had prepared. "You're moving out. Today," I said. "It's over." Alexis stared at me as if I had grown a second head. "Ma'am, I don't think you understand the situation. I can't leave. My apartment isn't ready yet, and Rob asked me to stay here to take care of you." "Take care of me?" I laughed, and it was a new laugh, a laugh that came from a deep place I had just discovered. "Alexis, I read your messages with Rob." Her face went white. "What messages?" "The iMessages. The ones where you plan how to prove I'm crazy so you can put me in a home and take my house." The silence that followed was total. Alexis opened and closed her mouth several times, like a fish out of water. That's not— You don't understand the context." "The context?" I took out my phone and showed her the pictures I had taken of their conversation. The context of documenting my decay? The context of changing my locks so it would be harder for you to get kicked out? The context of calculating how much my house is worth? Alexis tried to grab my phone, but I pulled it away. "Ma'am, I don't know what you think you understood, but I understood perfectly. I understood that you've been living in my house for 2 weeks, spending my money, using my things, manipulating my family, and planning to steal my life. But above all, I understood something very important." "What?" "That you and my son completely underestimated me." Alexis switched tactics. Her face softened. She put on that syrupy voice she used when she wanted to convince Rob of something. "Eleanor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Rob and I are genuinely worried about you. Sometimes text messages don't convey intentions properly." "Alexis," I interrupted. "I'm 67 years old, not 67 months. I know manipulation when I see it." "But ma'am— And another thing, stop calling me ma'am with that condescending tone. My name is Eleanor, and I am the owner of this house." For the first time since I'd met her, Alexis was speechless. The woman who always had an answer, an excuse, a justification, was silent. "You have 1 hour to pack the rest and take your things," I continued. "After that, if you're still here, I'm calling the police and filing a complaint for trespassing." "You can't do that. Rob won't let you." "Rob doesn't live here. Rob doesn't pay for this house. Rob has no legal right to this property." I pulled the deed from my folder of documents. "See this paper? It says that I, Eleanor Miller, am the sole owner of this property. It says nothing about Rob, and it definitely says nothing about you." Alexis looked at the document as if it were a venomous snake. "Are you going to call Rob?" "Rob already knows what I think. We spoke this morning. But he's going to—" "What? Come defend you? Force me to let you stay in my house?" "Alexis, my son has no legal power over me or my decisions. I am a competent woman, with all my mental faculties, the owner of my property and my life." I watched her process this information. I saw the exact moment she realized her plan had failed, that the confused old lady they thought they could manipulate turned out to be smarter and stronger than they had calculated. 50 minutes, I said, looking at my watch. Alexis started packing with jerky movements, throwing things into suitcases, muttering words I couldn't quite hear but I'm sure weren't compliments. I sat in my living room on my sofa, drinking my coffee from my favorite mug, watching the invader abandon my territory. And for the first time in weeks, my house felt like my home again. Alexis left, slamming the door so hard it rattled the building's windows. From my balcony, I saw her get into an Uber with her suitcases, talking on the phone in a hysterical voice that carried all the way up to the second floor. I didn't need to hear the words to know she was calling Rob, crying, inventing a version of events where she was the victim, and I was a cruel, ungrateful old woman. I didn't care. For the first time in decades, I was alone in my house by choice, not by abandonment. The silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I walked through my rooms, touching my things, smelling my reclaimed spaces, feeling how every corner was becoming mine again. I made dinner for one, just for me. A fried egg with refried beans and tortillas I heated on the stove, with some salsa I'd had in the fridge since before my trip. Simple food, honest food. Food that tasted like freedom. I was washing my plate when the phone rang. Rob. Of course. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I finally answered on the 4th call. Mom? What the hell did you do? His voice was loaded with a fury I hadn't heard since he was a teenager, and I grounded him for coming home late. Good evening, Rob. How nice to hear from you. Don't play games with me. Alexis told me what happened. You kicked my wife out of the house? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? There it was again. The word they had decided to use as a weapon. The perfect invalidation for any decision that didn't suit them. I'm not crazy, Rob. I'm awake. Awake? Alexis told me you threatened her, that you yelled at her, that you acted like a paranoid lunatic. I laughed. A soft but firm laugh. Is that what she told you? That I yelled? Yes. And that you accused her of horrible things. She said you're making up stories about messages that never existed. Rob, are you calling me from Houston? What? Yes. Why? On what phone? My cell phone, obviously. The same cell phone where you have the iMessage conversations with Alexis where you plan how to prove I'm senile so you can put me in a home. The silence that followed was so deep, I thought for a moment the call had dropped. I don't know what messages you're talking about, Mom. Rob, I read them, all of them. From where you plan the invasion to where you calculate how much you can get for my condo. Mom, we don't know who else has keys, she wrote. I'll document everything she does wrong, you replied. Sound familiar? Another silence. When he spoke, his voice had changed. It was no longer fury. It was panic. Mom, you don't understand the context. Rob, stop. That's enough. Enough of what? Enough of the lies. Enough of the excuses. Enough of treating me like I'm stupid. Nobody is treating you like you're stupid. She's getting older, you told me this morning. People your age, you said yesterday. A more suitable alternative, you said 3 days ago. You think I don't remember? It's just, Mom, it's the truth. You're 67. You're not a young woman anymore. You're right. I'm not young. I'm better than young. I'm wise. Wise? Is it wise to kick Alexis out for no reason? No reason. Rob, your wife invaded my home, changed my locks, threw out my things, sabotaged my relationship with my grandchildren, spent my money, and planned to have me committed to take my property. Which of those reasons isn't good enough for you? That's not true. Then come here. Come tomorrow from Houston. Bring your phone. Let's review those messages that don't exist together. I can't come tomorrow. I have work. Right. Your work is more important than clarifying whether your mother is crazy or your wife is a manipulator. Don't put it like that. How should I put it, Rob? Because from my perspective, my only son would rather believe a woman he's known for 3 years than the mother who raised him for 44. It's just, Alexis wouldn't lie about something like that. No. The same Alexis who told you I talk to myself when I'm actually praying while I cook? The same one who sent you pictures of my house in bad shape after she moved all my things? The same one who told my grandchildren there was nothing fun to do here so they wouldn't come on Sunday? The kids, that was cruel, Rob. And you allowed it. Mom, please, let's try to resolve this like adults. Perfect. Let's start with this. When were you planning on telling me you wanted me institutionalized? We don't want to institutionalize you. There are some really nice senior living places for people her age, your wife wrote. Places where she'd be better cared for. Does that message not exist either, Mom? And the one about we could say I'm staying for her sake, and it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission? Okay, fine, we did talk about it. But it wasn't. It wasn't some evil plan. It was genuine concern. Genuine concern is planning how to take my home from me? We didn't want to take anything from you. We just thought you might be better off in a place with people trained to… To what, Rob? To take care of you. I don't need to be taken care of. I need to be respected. We do respect you. No. You tolerate me. You put up with me. You manipulate me. But you don't respect me. Rob sighed deeply. When he spoke again, his voice sounded tired. What do you want me to do, Mom? First, stop calling me Mom with that weary tone, as if I'm a burden. It's not. Second, accept that you screwed up, that your wife was wrong, that I have a right to be angry. Okay, you have a right. Third, understand that my house is mine. My decisions are mine. My life is mine. And no one, including you, is going to decide for me where I live, how I live, or if I need special care. Mom? And fourth, the next time your wife needs a place to stay, she can rent a hotel. She doesn't have the money to… That's not my problem. Are you really going to be this harsh? Rob, for 44 years, I was as soft as I could be. I gave you everything I had. I forgave everything you did. I supported you in every decision, good or bad. I lent you money you never paid back. I cared for you, protected you, loved you unconditionally. And I appreciate, I'm not finished. During all those years, I never asked you for anything but love and respect. I never demanded you pay me back. I never held grudges for the missed dinners, the canceled Sundays, the broken promises. I never made you feel guilty for building your life while I was left alone. Mom? But apparently all that love and all that patience made you think I was some fool you could manipulate whenever you felt like it. Don't say things like that. What, I shouldn't say the truth? I should keep pretending it doesn't hurt that you plan to lock me away in a home without consulting me? It wasn't… I should keep acting like it didn't break my heart to discover that my only son would rather conspire against me than talk to me. But you never let me talk. You're always so sensitive. Sensitive? Rob, I just planned an international trip by myself, kicked your wife out of my house with legal arguments, and I'm having this conversation with you without crying. Does that seem sensitive to you? It's nothing. For 67 years, I have proven that I am a strong, intelligent, capable woman, but you two decided my age automatically made me mentally incompetent. We just wanted what was best for you. What's best for me is to be left in peace. What's best for me is for my decisions to be respected. What's best for me is for you to stop treating me like a problem that needs to be solved. So, you don't want us to be part of your life anymore? It was a trap question, an attempt to make me feel guilty, to turn my demand for respect into a threat of abandonment. Rob, I'm not the one choosing to walk away. You were the ones who decided it was better to conspire against me than to talk to me. You were the ones who preferred to plan my future without consulting me. You were the ones who turned my unconditional love into a weakness you could exploit. So what happens now? Now you decide what kind of relationship you want to have with me. One where you respect me as the adult woman I am, or none at all. Are you giving me an ultimatum? I'm offering you an opportunity. The opportunity to know your mother as the woman she really is, not as the helpless old woman you invented in your heads. And if I can't, then you're going to find out what it feels like to live without me, for real. Not like the times you ignored me because you knew I would always be there, but what it feels like to lose someone forever. The silence that followed lasted so long I thought he had hung up. Mom, I'm here. I love you. I love you too, Rob. That's why this hurts so much. And that's why I won't let it happen again. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. Not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. The ball was in his court. That night, I slept soundly in my own bed, with my own sheets, in my silent house. No vanilla perfume, no invaders, no fear. For the first time in decades, I slept like a free woman. The days that followed were a revelation. I woke up each morning without the knot in my stomach that had been my constant companion for weeks. There was no one checking what I was doing, criticizing how I did it, or deciding for me what was appropriate for my age. For the first time in years, my home was truly my own. The first change was small but significant. I started eating breakfast in the dining room again, not hiding in the kitchen. I placed my favorite mug on the table, spread out my newspaper, and enjoyed my coffee while I read the news. It sounded simple, but after weeks of feeling like an intruder in my own home, it was revolutionary. On the second day, I decided to do something I had been putting off since before the trip to Rome: paint my bedroom. I had bought the paint months ago, a soft sage green I had seen in a magazine. But Rob had commented that women your age should use more neutral colors, as if my age came with a mandatory decorating manual. I went to Mr. Henderson's hardware store on the corner, that place that smelled of motor oil and damp wood, where I'd bought 1,000 little things over the years. Mr. Henderson, a man my age with hands stained by honest work, greeted me with his usual smile. "Mrs. Miller, how was your trip? My wife told me you went to Italy. Good for you." "It was wonderful, Mr. Henderson. I came for some brushes and rollers. I'm going to paint my bedroom." "By yourself? Isn't Rob going to help you?" "I don't need help," I replied, and I was surprised how firm my voice sounded. "I can paint my own bedroom." Mr. Henderson looked at me with something that might have been respect. "Of course you can. What color?" "Sage green. That's a beautiful color. Very elegant." Elegant. Not age-appropriate or too youthful. Elegant. I came home loaded with cans of paint, brushes, rollers, and an energy I hadn't felt in years. I moved the furniture, spread plastic sheets on the floor, and put on music. Music I chose, at the volume I wanted, without anyone telling me it was too loud for a decent home. As I painted, I remembered something I had forgotten. I liked working with my hands. I liked seeing the immediate results of my effort. I liked creating beauty in my space. For decades, I had been so busy taking care of others that I had forgotten to take care of my surroundings for my own pleasure. The first wall came out perfectly. The sage green was exactly what I had imagined. Calm, but vibrant. Sophisticated, but warm. It was the color of a woman who had lived long enough to know what she liked and had the confidence to implement it. As I was painting the second wall, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Miller, this is Sophie, your granddaughter." My heart sped up. Had something happened? Why wasn't Rob or her mom calling me? "Sophie, my love, how are you? Is everything okay?" "Yes, Grandma. It's just, is it true we can't come visit you anymore?" I sat on the edge of the bed, the roller still in my hand. "Who told you that?" "Alexis. She said you got really mad and that you don't want to see us anymore." I felt a rage that burned from my stomach to my throat. Even after she was gone, Alexis was still manipulating, still hurting, still using the children as weapons. "Sophie, sweetie, that's not true. I always want to see you. Always. So we can come over? Because I already miss your pancakes. And Sam says he wants to play board games again." "Of course you can come. How about this Sunday?" "Really? Even if Dad is mad at you?" "Your dad isn't mad at me, honey. He's confused. But that has nothing to do with you and me." "And will there be lasagna?" "Alexis says lasagna is too heavy for kids, but I really like it." "There will be lasagna, pancakes, and anything else you want to eat." I heard Sophie sigh with relief on the other end of the line. "Grandma?" "Yes, my love?" "Is it true you went to Rome by yourself?" "Yes." "And you weren't scared?" "A little. But it was the most beautiful adventure of my life. When I grow up, I'm going to travel to places by myself too." "I'm sure you will. And it will be wonderful." After I hung up, I finished painting with a smile that wouldn't leave my face. My grandchildren wanted to see me. My grandchildren missed me. Alexis's manipulation hadn't completely worked. That afternoon, when the paint was dry, I rearranged my bedroom. But this time, I didn't just put things back in their place. I put them where I wanted them to be. I moved my dresser to the window for better natural light when I got ready. I changed the position of my bed so I could see the building's small courtyard from my pillow. I placed my mother's photo in the center of the nightstand, not hidden in a corner. For the first time in decades, my bedroom felt like a refuge designed by me and for me. On Friday, I decided to do something I had been putting off for years. I went to a salon, one of those modern ones in Wicker Park, where the stylists were young but professional, where the atmosphere was cheerful without being loud. "What did you have in mind?" asked Carla, a young woman of about 25 with blue-streaked hair and a genuine smile. "I don't know," I admitted. "It's been years since I've done anything different with my hair. Do you like it how it is?" "Honestly, no. It's practical, but boring." Carla studied my face with the professional concentration of someone who truly knows what they're doing. "What if we give it more shape? Some layers for volume, and maybe we can tone the gray so it looks silvery instead of dull." "Silvery?" "Yeah, like you're embracing your silver instead of hiding it. It's very elegant, very powerful." Powerful. I liked that word. 3 hours later, I walked out of that salon feeling like an upgraded version of myself. My hair had shape, movement, shine. The silver strands no longer looked neglected. They looked intentional, sophisticated. I looked like a woman who had control over her image, not like someone who had given up trying. On the way home, I stopped by the mall, not to buy something necessary, but to buy something I wanted. It had been years since I'd allowed myself that luxury. I went into a clothing store where I normally only window shopped, convinced it was too expensive or too young for me. The saleswoman, a woman in her 40s, greeted me without condescension. "Are you looking for anything in particular?" "A dress," I said, surprising myself. "Something nice. For a special occasion. For every day. To feel good." I tried on 5 dresses, some too formal, others too casual, but the 5th was perfect. Navy blue with small white flowers, 3/4 sleeves, a cut that flattered without being tight, elegant without being pretentious. "You look beautiful," the saleswoman said, and her tone wasn't that of someone trying to make a sale. It was that of one woman admiring another woman who looked good. I bought the dress. And a pair of comfortable but pretty shoes, brown leather with a low heel that made me feel taller without hurting my feet. When I got home, my reflection in the elevator mirror surprised me. The woman looking back at me looked renewed, not younger. I had no interest in pretending to be a different age, but more alive, more present, more aware of her own value. That night, I got dressed up for dinner, alone, in my house. I put on the new dress, did my hair, and put on a little lipstick I had bought but never used. I made a special dinner, pan-seared salmon with vegetables, something I never cooked because it was too expensive for one person. I set my table with my good china, the set I kept for special occasions that never arrived. I lit candles. I put on classical music. I poured myself a glass of wine that I had been saving since my birthday. I dined alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt accompanied by the best possible company, myself. After dinner, instead of washing the dishes immediately as I had my whole life, I sat in my living room, savoring the wine and the music, looking at my freshly painted bedroom through the open door. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to take care of anyone but myself. I didn't have to worry about the needs, opinions, or approval of others. I didn't have to justify my decisions or modify my desires to accommodate others' expectations. I was free, and freedom, I discovered, felt like the sage green of my walls, calm, but vibrant, sophisticated, but warm, exactly what I had chosen, exactly as I had imagined it. That night, before going to bed, I wrote in a notebook I had bought in Rome but never used. Today I learned that I don't need permission to be happy. I don't need permission to change my house, my hair, my clothes, my life. I don't need permission to spend my money on things that I like. I don't need permission to eat well, to look good, to feel good. For 67 years, I asked for permission, directly or indirectly, to exist as I wanted to exist. But no one can give that permission except for me. Tomorrow my grandchildren are coming, and they're going to meet a new grandmother, one who knows who she is and makes no apologies for it. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my balcony watching the sunset over the Logan Square skyline. I have a cup of chamomile tea in my hands and my notebook open on my lap. I've developed the habit of writing every afternoon, not because I have anything profound to say, but because I like the sound of my pen on the paper, the rhythm of my own thoughts flowing without interruption. My silver hair shines in the last rays of the sun. I no longer cut it for practicality, but because I like the way it looks. I'm wearing a mustard-colored sweater I bought last week, not because I needed it, but because it made me smile when I tried it on. Rob comes to visit every 2 weeks. At first, he would arrive with a guilty face and rehearsed apologies. Now, he comes with coffee from the corner bakery and genuine respect. It took him 3 months to understand that I didn't need his apologies. I needed him to change his behavior. And he did. Alexis and he divorced in February. Apparently, when she realized the plan to take my condo had permanently failed, she decided Rob was no longer a profitable investment. She left with a social media manager who promised to turn her into an international influencer. Rob told me this without bitterness, almost with relief, like someone who finally understands they've dodged a bullet. "Does it hurt?" I asked him when he told me the news. "Less than I thought it would," he answered. "I think it hurts more knowing I hurt you for someone who didn't even really know me. The kids come every Sunday, as it always should have been. Sam is 13 now and tells me about his math problems while we eat pancakes. Sophie turned 10 last month and asked me to teach her how to cook lasagna for when I'm grown up and live alone like Grandma. They both talk about my trips, because yes, there have been more trips, with genuine admiration, not the condescension adults use when the elderly do unexpected things. In March, I went to Santa Fe. Alone, of course. I stayed in a small hotel in the historic plaza, walked through markets that smelled of chili and piñon wood, and bought crafts I didn't need but loved. A Zuni woman my age taught me how to distinguish between different types of turquoise at a local market. We laughed for an hour, sharing stories of mischievous grandchildren and complicated daughters-in-law. She didn't ask why I was traveling alone. She was too. In May, I went to the Southwest. This time, I joined a group of mature travelers on a tour of the national parks. I met Helen, a widow from Denver, who had started traveling at 70. Because I ran out of patience waiting for other people to join me. We became friends immediately. Now we exchange handwritten letters. We decided emails are too cold for a real friendship. And we're planning a trip to New Orleans for next year. In August, I turned 68. Rob threw me a small party at my house, with my grandkids, a few neighbors who have become real friends, and Mrs. Gable, who turned out to be an excellent companion for watching soap operas and discussing the building's gossip. Nothing extravagant, but genuine. We ate chocolate cake that I made myself, listened to music by Frank Sinatra and Motown, and laughed until my stomach hurt. Rob gave me a photo album of my travels, with blank pages for future adventures. On the first page, he wrote, "For the bravest woman I know, thank you for teaching me what it means to be truly strong." I cried when I read it, but they were good tears, the kind that come when something that was broken is finally mended. My house is now exactly as I want it. The living room walls are a peach color, because they reminded me of the sunsets in Rome. I have plants everywhere, because I like taking care of things that grow instead of things that complain. My kitchen is full of spices I've collected on my trips, and I use every one of them regularly because food is too important to be boring. I've learned to use apps on my phone to order food when I don't feel like cooking, to call a ride when it's raining, to buy things online that are delivered to my door. Rob no longer has to explain technology to me. I learn it myself, at my own pace, without anyone making me feel foolish for asking questions. On Sunday afternoons, after the grandkids leave, I don't sit watching TV until I fall asleep on the sofa. I go for a walk in Humboldt Park, sit on a bench with a book, or go to the movies to see a film that I choose. I've discovered I like action movies more than I thought, and that there's nothing wrong with going to the cinema alone on a Sunday afternoon. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Henderson from the hardware store asked if I wanted to help him with his business's bookkeeping. His wife got sick, and he doesn't know a thing about numbers. I said yes, not because I need the money, but because I like feeling useful in ways that go beyond cooking and cleaning for others. I work 3 mornings a week at his store, helping with invoices and orders. He pays me fairly, treats me with respect, and we've developed a comfortable friendship based on jokes about difficult customers and conversations about our grandchildren. It's the first job I've had where no one questions my abilities because of my age. I've started painting again. Not walls this time, but canvases. I bought small canvases and watercolors, and I paint the things I see on my travels, the colors I like, the shapes that calm me. I'm not good, but it doesn't matter. I don't do it to be good. I do it because I enjoy the process of creating something that didn't exist before. My paintings are hanging all over the house. At first, Rob said they were very nice for a beginner, as if my age were an automatic limitation on learning new things. Now he just says he likes them, without condescending qualifiers. Helen is coming to visit next month. She's staying for a week, and we're going to explore museums, markets, and restaurants in Chicago. It will be the first time I've hosted a friend at my house since, I can't remember when, probably since before Rob was born. I've cleaned the guest room, the same one where I packed Alexis's things 6 months ago, and decorated it with care. New lavender-colored sheets, fresh flowers on the nightstand, soft towels I bought especially for her. It will be wonderful to have a guest who is coming because she wants to be here, not because she needs something from me. Last night, while looking over my savings passbook, I realized that for the first time in years, I have more money than I did the month before. Not because I earn a lot at the hardware store, but because I'm no longer financially responsible for other people's emergencies, for whims that aren't mine, for expenses that benefit people who see me as an emotional ATM. My money is mine. My time is mine. My energy is mine. And I share them with whoever deserves them, when I decide to, in the amounts I deem appropriate. Yesterday, Sam asked me if I was sad living alone. Sad? I replied. Sweetheart, there's a huge difference between being alone and being abandoned. I am alone by choice, and that feels completely different. And aren't you scared? Sophie insisted. Scared of what? I don't know. Of being all alone when you're really, really old. I laughed. Sophie, I am really, really old. And I'm perfectly fine. Fear doesn't come from age. It comes from not knowing yourself. This morning I received a letter from a woman in Cleveland named Brenda. She had read about my travels in a Facebook group for older women who travel solo. Yes, such a thing exists, and it's wonderful. She told me she is 65, was widowed 2 years ago, and that her children insist she's too old to travel alone. I wrote back to her, telling her about Rome, Santa Fe, the Southwest. I sent her pictures of my trips, not to show off, but so she could see that it's possible. That age is just a number others use to limit us when we let them. Sometimes I think about the woman I was 6 months ago. The one who curled up in a corner of her own bed because she didn't feel she had the right to take up the whole space. The one who ate leftovers of food she hadn't chosen. The one who asked for implicit permission for every decision in her own life. I don't pity her. That woman did the best she could with the tools she had at the time, but I am infinitely glad that I discovered I had tools I never knew I possessed. The sun is setting completely now. The city lights are beginning to twinkle on, and from my balcony, I can see the illuminated windows of other condos where other families are having dinner, arguing, laughing, living their own complicated versions of love and conflict. I close my notebook and go inside my home that smells of the candles I choose, that sounds with the music I like, that is decorated with colors that calm me. My home where every object has a purpose or brings me joy, where there is nothing that is there to please others or out of obligation. Tomorrow is Monday, and I'm going to work at the hardware store. Afterwards, I'll stop by the market to buy ingredients for a new recipe I want to try. In the afternoon, I'll paint a little, maybe read a few pages of the book on my nightstand, and in the evening, I'll call Helen to plan our day at the Art Institute. A simple life, but a chosen one. A quiet life, but not a resigned one. A life that is completely, absolutely mine. Have you ever experienced something like this? Do you know someone who has had to reclaim their own life in this way? Let me know in the comments if this story touched your heart. And if you made it this far, if you identified even a little bit with my story, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Because maybe, just maybe, there's someone else who needs to hear that it's never too late to start living the life you truly deserve.